Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Gear Talk. In the last episode I was talking about the big huge Pentax 67 and I decided this time to talk about something that philosophically is exactly the opposite. And this is the Minox 35GT. Before I'm going to talk you about this beautiful camera, there are two things. The first is a little message from myself as a sponsor. So if you want to support the channel, please, there's two books. One is a technical book, Photography, the F manual, with all the basics of photography. And that is really a nice book to learn everything you need to know to do better pictures. And the second is a novel, Lasting Photographs, very good reviews on Amazon, and it's a story that starts with the finding of some negatives in Florida and goes around the world to discover who is portrayed in these very old negatives. So this or this, and you will support the channel. Thank you very much. Another thing that is to do before we start to talk about the camera is to show you a little slideshow. Something to say, this slideshow is composed of the images of the first roll that I used to test this camera a lot of years ago when I bought it. And that's a roll of Provia, RDP, the Fujifilm RDP, the Provia, and I always use that film to test camera because it's a fantastic film, but it's very precise. You need to expose correctly, and you can see on that film I was used to use it on 4x5, and just to give you an idea, I used to take a normal photo and 1/3 of stop closed, darker photo just to have a little bit more saturated colors, but 1/3 of a stop was enough to show in the film. So I always use that film to test cameras, because when I test the camera I want to see how well the internal exposure meter performs. So take a look at the slideshow and we will talk later. I hope you enjoyed the slideshow, and from the slideshow I'm sure you saw how much good is the exposure in this camera, the exposure meter, and how much sharp is the camera. If you want more details about the sharpness, go to read the article that I wrote with this video, and on my website you will see some enlargement of the pictures, some of the pictures that you saw in the video, so you can check the equivalent of pixel peeping on this film and this camera. This said, great camera, and technically the Minox 35GT is absolutely well designed camera, but it's a camera with only manual focus, and you have no indication of the focus inside the viewfinder. So to focus you have to estimate the distance from you and the subject and put the focus here and regulate the focus with the right distance here. Obviously you can use the depth of field, and that's really something that is helpful. For example, if I put an f16 with the infinite on one side of the scale, on the other side I go 1.5 meters, something like that. So basically at f16 from 1.5 meter to infinite will everything will be in focus, and this is a very good thing. And this scale here with the depth of field is very useful to focus when you are in a situation like this where the focus is totally manual without any assistance in the viewfinder. Another thing important about this camera is that this camera is only automatic. The exposure is always automatic with the aperture priority. So you set the aperture and the camera will decide the shutter speed. And the shutter speed, it goes from 1/500th of a second to, depends on the ISO of the film. I have to read because I never remember, with something as a 25 ISO, you can arrive at 30 seconds of exposure. With a 400 ISO, the longest time is 1 second. So that's depend, but is a lot, is enough to do some kind of night photography, for example in a urban environment or this kind of things. So really great. And as you have seen in the slideshow, the exposure meter is absolutely precise, and it's exposed very well in a lot of different situations. So there's not much to worry about that. But the great thing of this camera is that you have this switch here that says 2 pair and the 2x, and this multiplies by 2 the time for the exposure. So if you know that there's a subject that is having back illumination or something like that, like a backlight, and you risk to underexpose the image, you can just put a 2 pair and overexpose the image one stop. And that's great and is enough for, I think, 99% of the situation. So it's really great. And that's fantastic. In the viewfinder, the only information that you have is how to frame the image and is the shutter speed. And the shutter speed from 30th of a second to 500th of a second. Below 30th of a second is, we don't care, you cannot shoot manually anyway, so without a tripod or something, so who cares? And that was a choice, and it can be a good choice. I mean, it really works. And this camera is so well designed that when you don't always need a tripod, because it's very easy to put the camera down on a flat surface, as a table, a chair or something like that, and just use the camera in this way. So also if the viewfinder tells you below 130, be careful. Yes, you have to be careful, but a lot of times you don't need a tripod, you just need a surface, or if you put against the wall or something like that, it's fantastic. The shutter is so easy to press that will not absolutely will not introduce vibrations. It's really easy to press. So also if you are just attached to a wall and press, you don't introduce any movement just for the pressure of the shutter. But if you want to be precise, use a tripod, and there's the screw for the remote shutter. The standard cable, remote cable, can be mounted here. Or another solution is that this camera has a self-timer, so you can turn on the self-timer and click and wait. So that's will damp any vibration. Another curious thing about this camera is that you have to wind it twice to advance the film, and that's something that you need to get the habit to do that. Usually is once, and why it doesn't work? Oh yeah, two, and you give the second. That's, for me at least, was that because I didn't use this camera that much. It was usually with me, but sometime I didn't use it for a lot of months, and in that case, really, this muscular memory was not more there. So that's a great thing. By the way, one of the greatest thing is how silent is this camera. This is the shutter. So it's really is a central shutter, on the lens and leaf shutter, so it's very quiet. It's very silent, and you can use it a lot. And by the way, the format of this camera is so compact that you can really, for street photography and this kind of things, it's very stealthy. But another great thing about this camera that I was almost forgot to talk to you about, it is the greatest thing of this camera, is the 35mm color Minox, and this is a 35mm 2.8 lens. And you can see in the images how much this lens is sharp for the compactness. So this is really a great lens. And everything is packaged in a way that, first of all, if you close the camera, you not just protect the lens and everything, but it also shut down every possible contact, electronic contact, so you don't waste batteries at all. And this is really a great thing. Batteries is a 6 volt 527px or something like that, but there are adapters for other batteries. And this is really a fantastic design for this reason, and the batteries will last years if you keep the camera closed. And by the way, remember always to take off the batteries if you store the camera for a long time, because the usual problem is the acid of the batteries ruin the cameras. Other things, technically, this camera goes from 25 ISO to 800 ISO, the setting of the exposure meter, but you have to remember that you have the 2x, so actually you can use an 1600 film with the 2x set. It's enough for a lot of things. If you don't really need to push films or this kind of things, this is absolutely, for me, enough. Very easy to open and change the film, this kind of things. I don't do that because I have a film inside, but it's absolutely easy and something normal to do. Other things, there's not much more to say about this camera. Yes, the focus can be from 3 feet, the minimum distance on focus is 3 feet, so it's 0.9 meter to infinite, and that's. And the other things that I'm looking down at the technical data to be sure that I don't forget something, and the camera is just 10 millimeters, 100 millimeters, sorry, so 10 centimeters by 61 millimeters by 3.1, so it's very compact, and 200 grams is the weight, so it's very light. Really great camera to always have around. And the other things that I wanted to tell you is that if you want to use the flash, this camera has a notch shot, so it's very easy to use the flash. But the good thing is that with the camera it came this flash, at least when I bought it, and this is a very compact little flash, not bad because you can go at 5.6 meter, something like that, with 100 ISO at 2.8, so it's not bad as power. And the most important thing is it's very compact on the camera. It has a couple of automatic modes, one for more distance, the other for less distance, and a manual mode obviously. And it's very compact on the camera, it's very easy to use, it doesn't influence too much how you manage the camera, just a little bit here, near, it's a little bit too close to the release button, but that's not a big deal. So great flash that can be used for a lot of things. Actually, I do not use flashes when I go around taking pictures with this kind of camera, so I mean, I have the flash, probably I used it a couple of times just to do some tests and nothing more, and that's all. So at the end of the game, this is a very great camera. The price on the used market is still good. I think it's worth the price that you see around there, and the camera is absolutely a beautiful camera with beautiful sharpness, with beautiful lens and all these kind of things. So great camera to have and to keep in your pocket if you want something to do with film when you're around. this is the camera for you. I have the GT model, the 35. Minox came out with a lot of different models, so just go on Google and do a research. When I bought it, I thought that the 35GT was one of the best model on the market, first of all, and second, when I was studying what Minox to buy, I got a very good deal with this. It was on the used market. So great camera. I'm very happy that I bought it, and I took some pictures around the tower. At the end of the game with this camera, I don't have something very artistical to show, because I didn't use this camera to produce art or this kind of things, but I have a lot of great memories. It's just what you do now basically with your cell phone, a lot of things that kind, you know, you're around with the friends and take a picture just to remember the moment on this kind of thing. So it was a very great camera to have for that. I didn't create outstanding images for that, but I did create a lot of very good memories that I still have around. And the quality of this camera is so good that I was trying to looking in my archive to understand what pictures I took with this and what picture I took with the other camera, eventually professional camera. And the only way I had to figure out was kind of the subject. It was, yeah, I remember there was around with my friends for sure. I didn't have my huge SLR, this kind of things, and so I suppose this is the camera. But just looking at the negatives of the film or the prints, there's not really much difference between this and an SLR with the 35mm. So great camera all the way. So thank you very much for watching, and again, if you want to support the channel, one or two books, both great books, different, one a novel, one a technical book, a manual, but both of them will support this channel and will let me go on with this kind of video. Thank you very much, see you next time.